Good afternoon and good morning, wherever you're kind of joining us from this lovely day. We're very glad and give you a warm welcome to what we have as our third installment of our Health and Wellbeing webinar series brought to you by JWSeagon Group. Just a bit of housekeeping before we start. So this webinar is obviously being recorded and you'll have the opportunity to kind of view the recorded version post-webinar as well. We have got roughly an hour in which we'll have our guest speaker present for around 40 minutes, and then we've allocated the final 20 minutes to question and answer session. So you will be able to see a little Q&A tab on your screen. So feel free during the course of the webinar to type out your question, and then come Q&A, we will do our best to kind of answer every question that you've got. So as I mentioned, it's our third installment of our webinar series. If you've missed and are joining for the first time, we have had a couple of webinars or seminars before, or discussions around health and well-being. The first one being around how a healthy workforce can impact your bottom line, focusing on stress and what you can do to kind of reduce that, mitigate it, and what employers can do to kind of help their employees manage that. Our second installment was around anxiety and depression and the lesser known facts about what causes them, and again, how to mitigate for impact, and also helping employers understand and identify areas of concern that they can assist employees with. Today's topic is based around the importance of sleep. So it's about helping you get richer, healthier, and of course, stay looking younger. So in today's session, we will learn about how it is important to sleep more, how we can impact the quality of our sleep, and what we can do to improve that quality over time. Our guest speaker today, and I'm very happy to say, is Dr. Jolanda Coombs. She's with us for the last couple of seminars, and we're keen to kind of have her talk to us about this various topics in a lot of detail, to provide some thought leadership expertise on areas that maybe sometimes we take for granted. She's the only qualified rapid transformational therapist in Kenya, having trained with a world-renowned therapist, Marissa Peer. She also talks about issues that inhibit performance in the workplace, and also supports influencing behavior both individually and collectively. She's worked across Africa in multiple different disciplines and has spent the last years working and living in Kenya. So we're very happy and proud to have Dr. Jolanda Coombs join us again for today's session as well. For those of you that are new to the webinar series and JWSeagon, a very quick intro into who we are. So JWSeagon Group is an independent insurance brokerage services. We partner with over 20 both international and local insurance providers, both across medical, general, life, wealth, travel, and pensions. We've been in the market for over 25 years, and we have over 40 employees spread across multiple locations in both Kenya, Tanzania, Mauritius, and the UK. We currently service over 11,000 clients across Africa and beyond. And we are very passionate about driving thought leadership topics around health and well-being. Particularly in East Africa, it is a growing topic of discussion and important. Well, so I'll now pass on to Dr. Jolanda Coombs, who will take us through our topic of today: want to be rich, healthier, and stay looking younger, the importance of learning to sleep more. Dr. Jolanda.
Thank you. So good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, actually, I should say. So I want to first ask you to think about how many hours of sleep do you get? And be really honest with yourselves. How many hours on average do you get? So 20 years ago, the average number of hours of sleep that a person had was about 9 hours. And now that has decreased to about 7 hours. And for some people, it's even less. So one of the things is the thought processes that you have are going to be hugely impacted when you have a lack of sleep. Lack of sleep is often used as a torture for people. They're kept awake because when you don't have enough sleep, it affects your mental health. If you think, for those of you who have children, when you have children who are missing a bit of sleep or have a late night, think about their behavior the next day. When we look at people with psychiatric and mental health issues, 50 to 80% of patients who have psychiatric ill health or mental ill health have sleep issues, whereas we would normally find that around 10 to 15% in the normal population. If you sleep less, you age faster. I'll explain this later because of what's going on in your cells. But also, if you aren't getting enough sleep, your sex drive and your fertility decrease. So for men who are getting 7 hours of sleep or less, which is considered short sleep, there is a 42% reduction in their ability to get their wives pregnant. And a man who is sleeping 7 years or less has the fertility of a man 10 years older than him. For women, again, if you're struggling to get pregnant, you're struggling if you have issues with what's called secondary infertility, where they can't find out what's wrong with you, it may well just be the amount of sleep you're getting. And I'll go on to explain why this is. And it's because the brain area that controls when you're awake and when you're asleep also controls the hormones for ovulation, for fertility, for testosterone. And therefore, if that area is disrupted because you're not sleeping properly, it's also going to disrupt your fertility. So after thinking about the impact of sleep, what's actually going on in your brain when you are not sleeping enough? So one of the first things that happens, sleep deprivation, and by sleep deprivation, I mean anything under about 7 hours a night averaging, but even one night of sleep deprivation really reduces the glucose content in your brain. And glucose is the brain's fuel. And when you reduce that glucose content in your brain, you are less likely to do well at school, you're less likely to do well at work, and you are less likely to be as financially stable or to earn as much. Because as the sleep deprivation reduces the glucose, it leads to much slower thought processes and reaction time. And as I said, just from one night of sleep, you can see a difference in people's reaction times. So when people are sleep deprived, their reaction times can be as slow as if they've been drinking alcohol. So in terms of driving, lack of sleep can cause you to have the same poor reaction times. When that glucose reduction hits a part of your brain known as the parietal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, these parts of your brain are what you use when you are problem solving, in high level thinking, in decision making, and therefore lack of sleep affects your ability to think clearly, affects your ability to take decisions, affects also your memory. Lack of sleep also increases the stress hormone cortisol. And this can take a toll on you. And if you were here at the last workshop, at the last webinar, we talked about the role of cortisol in stress. When you have cortisol going around your body, it increases inflammation, and inflammation is the root cause of many illnesses. So lack of sleep is a fundamental for your health. It is a fundamental for your thinking. There was a study that was done in 2016, and it showed that people who were able to increase their sleep by 1 hour a night, so that they moved into the magic zone, you should be aiming to get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep a night. People who were able to increase their sleep by 1 hour saw a 5% increase in their wages, in their ability to earn money, just because of better productivity and better performance. So if you're an employer, think about this. If you have a workforce who are sleeping an hour less than they should be, it's going to be having an impact on your bottom line and on their performance and how it brings it into the workplace. So what's going on when you're awake and when you're asleep. When you're awake, it's called a catabolic state. So basically, you are firing on all cylinders, but the actual cells in your body are oxidizing. They're combining with oxygen and they're getting broken down. And this is because our body is a living thing, and so those cells need to be replaced. But when we're awake, the cells are breaking down, we're more likely to succumb to illness, they're being weakened, they're being destroyed. When we are in a sleep mode, we are in what's called an anabolic mode, where those molecules are building up. We are fighting illness, we are repairing, we are strengthening. Have you ever noticed that if you lose a night's sleep and you were on the edge of a cold or some other illness, that will be the thing to tip you over into the illness, into the getting yourself feeling far worse than you were? And that equally, if you're starting to become ill and you go to bed early and you have a good night's sleep, you can often beat the thing that you're trying to fight off. You can allow yourself to feel much better by having a good night's sleep. So when you're asleep, the body is repairing, the body is healing, the body is strengthening, and you are filling yourself up with the energy you need for another day. If you go through life decreasing the amount of sleep that you have, then you're going to soon be running on empty. It's a bit like continuing to run your car and you're never having it serviced. Eventually, it's going to give out to you. So sleep does all these things to you. Sleep or lack of sleep can inhibit your performance mentally. It can affect how you are emotionally, how stressed you feel, and it can also affect you physically. But what do you do? How can you get a good night's sleep? One of the most important things is paying attention to light. Light is both your friend and your enemy. So we need daylight because we are what's called diurnal beings. We are awake during the day and we set our body clock to the light. And we need to get up early and we need to be in the first light of day to really have an impact on our sleep. We also need to avoid daylight at night when we need to sleep. So in North America, in the north of Europe, there is a disease called SAD, and it stands for Seasonal Affective Disorder. And it's to do with people who during the winter time don't get enough light. And that's because in the northern hemisphere, actually, and in the very southern hemisphere, during the winter, the days are very short. It means you're traveling to work in the dark and you're not seeing the sunlight, and then you're going home in the dark. And if you work in an office which has no windows, where there is artificial light, you never really get daylight, and you need that daylight for your circadian rhythm and for you to be able to sleep properly. You absorb light both through your eyes, but also through your skin. So one of the best things you can do if you're having trouble sleeping is have at least 10 to 20 minutes outdoors every day, preferably first thing in the morning. So eat your breakfast outdoors, take a little bit of a walk on your way to work, get some light, and that will help to set your circadian rhythm so that you have a much better sleep. If you sleep with a light on in your room, your quality of sleep will not be as good. If you are in an area of the city, if you're in a city like Nairobi, where there's often ambient light around, invest in some blackout curtains so that when you're asleep at night, your skin and your eyes, even through your eyelids, are not reacting to the light. Some people have this habit of falling asleep in front of the TV or with lights on. It means the quality of sleep you get will not be good enough. Because when we're having light in the evenings and at night, it suppresses a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is a natural hormone that we have which rises in the couple of hours before we go to bed. But if we're looking at light, like the blue light that you might get from a computer screen, a TV screen, or even from your phone, then it's going to suppress your melatonin. And if we have light later in the evening or through the night, when we keep a light on in a bedroom, it can suppress melatonin production by as much as 50%. And that is enough to give you insomnia and to disrupt your sleep. So remember, sunlight is your friend, and blue light from technology is your enemy when it comes to sleep. And so if you have trouble falling asleep in particular, make sure that for at least an hour before you go to bed, you don't have any blue light, either from TV, computer, or phone. And also make sure that the light bulbs that you have in your house, and in your bedroom in particular, or the room you're in before you go to sleep, are yellow light bulbs, because yellow light bulbs don't affect your mind and don't affect the melatonin as much as a blue light bulb. So let me explain to you more about this idea of circadian rhythm. Every single human being has a natural rhythm, and that natural rhythm is set to sunlight. And we know this because experiments that were done with people where they were put into rooms where there is no sunlight, where it's completely dark, their sleep soon gets disrupted when they can't set their clock to sunrise. So it's really important to respect your body clock and keep time with it. So if you look at the diagram on the left, at 6 o'clock in the morning, this is the sharpest rise in blood pressure, because this is actually the natural time that we should be getting up, at about between 6 and 7. That's when melatonin stops being secreted so that we wake up. The highest point of your alertness is around 10 o'clock in the morning. So if you're ever thinking about doing your most important work, schedule it for around 10 o'clock. When at around 2 p.m. in the afternoon, we have a slump, but soon after it, we have our best coordination. And in the afternoons is when we have our fastest reaction time. In the early evening, that's when we have our greatest strength in our heart and in our muscles. In the early evening is when we have our highest blood pressure. And then our highest body temperature is around 7 o'clock. And that's because our body temperature then starts to fall off. And the fall off in body temperature is one of the signals to the rest of our body that it's time to sleep. So melatonin starts to be secreted at around 9 o'clock, meaning that by around 10 o'clock, we are naturally sleepy. And the best magic time for sleep is actually between 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning. Most of us sleep in 90-minute cycles. And in those 90-minute cycles, we go through different brain waves. So we go from being awake, we go down into an alpha brainwave, then a theta, then into delta, which is deep sleep, then we come back up through them. So we wake several times in the night, but we have learnt to fall back asleep. But for some people, their sleep gets disturbed and they wake up. So one of the worst things that you can do is if you end up, when you wake up in the night, putting on a light or picking up your phone. If you put on a light or pick up your phone in the middle of the night, what you're going to end up doing is decreasing your melatonin, and you're going to make it very hard for yourself to go back to sleep. So when you wake up in the night, it's really important for you to try and just allow yourself to relax and get yourself back into a sleeping position. And I'll explain some of the things that you can do to do that. So your body clock can be thrown off if you work in an office where there is no natural light, no windows. So for those of you who are employers, think about making sure that everybody has access to natural light. Your body clock can also be thrown off if you have shift work. And the really important thing, and the reason why you need to sleep between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning, is because that is when human growth hormone peaks. And human growth hormone is not just about us growing, but human growth hormone is also used to repair our body from all the damage that it goes through in a day. So what else can you do to help your sleep? You can think about your lifestyle. For some people, caffeine has an effect on them, and you need to learn whether caffeine has an effect on you. So caffeine is found in coffee, it's found in Coca-Cola, but it's also found in tea. So those of you who drink a lot of coffee, tea, or Coke know that you're taking in a lot of caffeine. Caffeine has an 8-hour half-life. So if you drink 200 milligrams of coffee at 7 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, you've still got 100 in your body, and you've still got 50 in your body at 11 o'clock. And so if you have several cups of coffee and you keep drinking coffee into the afternoon, then you're going to have caffeine in your body at night. And why is that important? Because caffeine is very similar to adenosine, which is a chemical that our brain produces when we are awake. And naturally, as adenosine drops and melatonin increases, we become sleepy. And that is one of the signals in our body that as that adenosine is dropping off, we start to get sleepy. So caffeine has the ability to sneak into adenosine receptors so that the body thinks that it still should be awake. It's one of the reasons why many people, if they have to work late in the office or if they've had a bad night's sleep, will take extra coffee or tea because it will keep them awake. Often people will say, I need a drink to get myself to sleep. And it's true. Taking alcohol, it's a sedative. It will make you feel sleepy, but it interferes with your REM sleep. REM sleep is rapid eye movement sleep. And this is an important stage of sleep. And it's an important stage for the mind in sleep, where the mind is organizing the things that have happened in the day. So if you repeatedly drink alcohol to get you off to sleep, know that the quality of your sleep may not be as good. A great way to mitigate the effects of alcohol is to make sure that you drink a lot of water. Drink a glass of water with each alcoholic drink that you have. The other thing that you can do if you want a great night's sleep is to have sex. When we have sex, we have natural hormones that get released, and it's why we feel sleepy afterwards. Another thing you can do in terms of lifestyle to help your sleep is don't nap. Don't take a nap in the afternoon, don't take a nap in the early evening. When you have these little micro sleeps, for some people it can really disrupt their sleeping later on in the night. So think about what might be affecting you in terms of your lifestyle. There's other things that you can do in terms of both mind and body that can increase your sleep. Exercise is a great way to help us sleep, because when we exercise, it creates these little micro tears in the muscles, which then get repaired at night. Do you remember I said to you, when we're sleeping, we are repairing the body. And when our body senses that we have these tears that need to be repaired, it releases hormones like testosterone and human growth hormone. And because it senses that it needs to do some repair work, it puts us into deeper sleep so it can get on and repair. There are 2 supplements that you can take. So I talked to you about the role of melatonin, which is something we naturally produce. And for some people, taking melatonin for a short term, maximum sort of 2 weeks, can help to reset their body clock. And you can buy melatonin in health food shops, and you just take it about an hour or 2 before you want to go to sleep for about 2 weeks to reset your sleep. If you take melatonin all the time, the effect of taking the supplement will wear off. If you travel, particularly if you have to go as far as America, or you go east into Asia, because of the time difference, your body clock can be disrupted. And melatonin is a good way of getting your body clock back into the time in Kenya. The other thing that sometimes people can benefit from is taking magnesium. If you ever have that sensation of restless legs in bed, like you want to move your legs, like your legs need to jiggle about, it can often be because you have a magnesium deficiency. And the way that our food is grown now means that we have less magnesium in our food. And magnesium is needed in the body for 300 different biochemical reactions. It balances blood sugar, it optimizes blood pressure, it relaxes muscles, and that helps with your sleep. So you can take magnesium supplements, but they tend to give some people stomach irritation. So the other way of doing it, you can buy sprays and creams, and particularly if you have problems with restless legs and muscles at night, you can rub magnesium into those muscles. The third thing you can do is learn to meditate. When we meditate, we allow our body to just relax. We reduce the stress hormones, the cortisol, which are going to keep us awake. And we allow our body to go into a much better state, because when we meditate, we already take our brain waves down to a more relaxed state. So meditation teaches you to still the mind. And if you can learn to still the mind, you can allow yourself to get into a more relaxed state. So some people find meditating before bed a very nice, easy way to get themselves ready for sleep. Your bedroom should be set up as a sanctuary for sleep. A lot of people work from bed. They have their computer and they sit on their bed, and what happens is your brain starts to associate the bedroom as a place of work. So when we talk about something called stimulus control therapy, we really want to set an association that the bedroom is for sleep. So we don't want a computer in there, we don't want our phone in there, we don't want a TV in there. You don't want to be doing anything that stimulates your brain into feeling like it should be awake. So the other thing you can also do is you can make sure that your bedroom is not too hot. We actually sleep better when we're a little colder rather than when we're hotter or when we're too hot. And this is because one of the natural processes that goes on when we're asleep is that our body temperature drops. So for some people, you can induce sleep. If you have difficulty falling asleep, take a hot shower before bed, and the process of getting out of the hot shower and cooling down will induce an effect of feeling sleepy. Another thing that you can do is to make sure you have plants in your room, or you have the window open. When you have plants in your room, plants convert carbon dioxide into oxygen, and they also recharge the air in our room with the air ions, which really helps to improve our health. I talked to you about stress, when I was talking to you about stress and anxiety, I was saying that actually having plants in the office is very good. And there's one plant in particular, I don't know what the other name for it, but I know it as mother-in-law's tongue, and it can convert carbon dioxide into oxygen at night. Most other plants can only do it during the day. So if you feel that your bedroom needs to have a better atmosphere, a better energy, you might look into getting some plants in your bedroom. What happens if you're somebody who falls asleep but then you wake up, or even if you're struggling to fall asleep and you have insomnia? The first thing I'd recommend that you do is you start keeping a sleep log. Keep a sleep log twice a day. So keep a sleep log in the morning of how you slept, how many hours did you sleep, how good a quality was your sleep, but then also keep a sleep log of what was going on in the day. Were you particularly stressed? Did you have a lot of tea or coffee? What else was going on? Did you exercise? Did you go outside? And if you do this for a few weeks, you will begin to see some patterns of what helps you sleep and what keeps you awake. When you do wake up in the night, don't lie in bed if you are awake for more than about 20 minutes. You need to get up. And it's back to what I said to you about making a very clear association in your brain that when you are in bed, you're there to sleep, not to be awake. If you can, for that 20 minutes, try not to turn a light on, just try and focus and concentrate on your breathing. So one thing you can do when you first wake up is just from the top of your head all the way down to your toes, try and relax every single piece of your body. So you might try and relax your scalp, you might try and relax your ears, your jaw, your shoulders, you might try and relax your stomach, your legs, your arms, and you might tense and relax every single muscle in your body. And as you focus on starting at the top of your head and working all the way down your body, that might help you go back to sleep. But if after 20 minutes you're still struggling, another thing you can do is open up your eyes and focus on something in your room that you can see. Maybe a chest of drawers or a mirror or even the window and curtains themselves. And just look at them for a moment, even in the dark, without the light on. And then what I'd like you to do is, as you look at them, is then close your eyes and picture them in your mind. What do they look like? You just picture what that looks like with your eyes closed, and then open your eyes again and look back at what you're seeing. And then close your eyes again and imagine if it was moved slightly or adjusted or a different color. What would that thing look like? And what you're doing is you're taking your brain between being in a beta brainwave, a conscious brainwave, into an alpha where it's imagining. And by doing that, you are signaling that you want to go down deeper into an inward brainwave where you're looking at yourself. If you still can't get to sleep after doing those exercises, then it's really important that you get up. And when you get up, you need to go do something relaxing or boring. Don't go watch the TV because the blue light will stimulate you and you're likely to get interested and involved in what you're watching. Don't pick up your phone to look at emails or your computer because again, you're going to stimulate your brain through the blue light, but you're also going to stimulate your brain because you're going to get involved in what's going on. So do something relaxing or boring. Go reorganize a drawer. Go maybe do a little bit of washing, wiping down tables or something that your brain then says, this is so boring, I'd rather go back to sleep instead. And you only go back to bed once you are feeling sleepy. So the other thing is pick up a book or a journal or something that you need to read that you're not that interested in because that will also help you get back to sleep. Return to bed. And then it is really, really important that you get up at the normal time and you don't sleep in. Often people go, I had a really bad night's sleep, so I'm going to sleep in. And when you do that, what you do is you disturb that circadian rhythm, you disturb that body clock that is so important because your body likes a regular time. So if you're somebody who's having sleep problems, as crazy as this may sound, at the weekend, get up within half an hour of the time you normally have to get up during the week. So have half an hour extra, but no more. You should try and go to bed within half an hour of the same time every night, and you should try and get up within half an hour of the same time every day. Now, if you don't have sleep problems, no problem. But if you have sleep problems, this is what you need to be doing on a regular basis. Think about the words you tell yourself. Your mind hugely responds to the words you tell yourself. There's a lovely Henry Ford quote where he says, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're probably right. So when you tell yourself, I can't sleep, I never sleep, I got zero sleep, I tossed and turned all night, I fall asleep, but then I wake up constantly. You are giving your mind permission, you're almost telling yourself that this is what you want to do. So choose your words carefully. So rather than saying, I got zero sleep, which probably isn't true, say something like, I didn't get as much sleep as I would have liked. Yeah? Tone down the way you talk to yourself because your mind responds to the words you tell yourself. So just as if you tell yourself, I can do something, you set yourself up for success. If you tell yourself that you can't do something or this is bad, you set yourself up for failure. So don't anticipate a lack of sleep. If you wake up at night, don't anticipate that you're going to be awake all night, because your brain thinks that that's what you want. So you need to tell yourself the opposite. Because what do people who sleep well think about when they're going to bed? They certainly don't worry about whether they're going to have a good night's sleep. They don't worry about whether they're going to wake up at night. They also don't worry about other things. They just allow sleep to come upon them. And notice the language that I'm using there, because sleep is not a place that we go to. It's not it's not like saying I'm going to fika. It's not a place. Sleep comes upon you. So when you're in bed, just allow sleep to come upon you. Allow yourself to drift. Allow your mind to wander, but don't allow your mind to wander so much that you start thinking. And one of the things that you can do to help your mind relax before bed, in addition to learning how to do something like meditation, is you can get a piece of paper and you can set a timer for 3 or 5 minutes. And you can write down all the things that you are worried about, or all the things that you need to remember tomorrow, or all the things that you are thinking about. And if they're worries, write them down and then rip the piece of paper up and put them in the bin. And if they're things you have to do, you've captured them, and then you can use that list in the morning. And by clearing your mind in this way, you signal very clearly to yourself that you're ready for sleep, and you're ready to just allow yourself to drift off and to let sleep come upon you. So some people find it very useful to have a pen and notepaper by the side of the bed, because then they can write down anything that comes into their mind so that they can allow their mind to relax. So in summary, what do you need to do to get a good night's sleep, and why do you need a good night's sleep? The why is the easy bit. You need a good night's sleep because sleep is the foundation for your health. Sleep or lack of sleep is going to lead to stress. Lack of sleep is going to lead to ill health. It's going to lead to you not making decisions, not performing as well, not being as good at your job, but also not being as good in your relationships. So what do you need to do? Stick to a sleep schedule. Stick within the same bedtime, give or take half an hour, and the same waking up time. Practice a relaxing bedtime ritual. So for those of us who have children, and when they were small, what you do is you start to signal to your child that it's bedtime. You start to quieten the games. You have things in a set order. Maybe you have a bath, a story, a drink, and then into bed. Do the same with yourself. Practice a ritual that signals to your mind and your body that it's time to go to bed. So that means switching off the TV, switching off the computer, switching off your phone, and signaling to yourself, I'm going to read a book for 20 minutes or do something that sends me to sleep. For those of you who have difficulty sleeping, avoid napping during the day. Avoid taking little sleeps after lunch or on the bus home, because those little sleeps disrupt your circadian rhythm. Try and take exercise daily. I don't mean necessarily going to the gym, but just going outside for 10 minutes and having a small walk. And if the only time you can exercise is in the evening, do it early evening, not late evening, because late evening it is likely to disrupt your sleep. Make sure that your bedroom is set up as a sanctuary for sleep. So no computer or phone in the bedroom. And if you do have Wi-Fi, experiment with turning it off. Some people are very, very susceptible to the electromagnetic field of their Wi-Fi or from their phone. So if you want to keep your phone in your bedroom, keep it away from your head, and never ever sleep with your phone under your pillow. That is the worst place that you can have your phone, because the electromagnetic field that is being emitted from it is going to disrupt your brain waves and your sleep all night. So if you do have your phone in your room, put it on airplane mode or put it a long way away from your body and particularly away from your head. Make sure that you choose quality bedding. When was the last time you changed your mattress. Make sure that you're not too hot, you're not too cold. Make sure that you're comfortable, that you have a good pillow, that you feel relaxed when you are asleep. Make sure that you manage that circadian rhythm by getting up at the right time and by avoiding alcohol, caffeine, and also avoid cigarettes close to bedtime if you are somebody who smokes, because they're a stimulant. Remember, don't stay in bed if you can't sleep. You need to have a clear association with the bed for sleep. And so if you wake up and you're not sleeping, get up. And then go back to sleep when you feel drowsy. And then make sure you get up at the right time the next morning, even if you're tired, because the only way you're going to get a better routine is to get that circadian rhythm working, and it likes to be regular. And then finally, the thing you can do is manage your stress, manage your worries, so that when you go to sleep, those things are not in your mind and not going around. And so I hope that you have learned some things here that you might be able to do for your sleep. I hope that you might think about what you might even be able to do in the office to help people with their sleep, in terms of the amount of caffeine that's available to them, in terms of the amount of daylight, and in terms of the amount of stress. And for all of you, when you go home tonight, have a look at your bedroom and think, what can I do to make my bedroom more of a sanctuary for sleep and to help me sleep better? Because if you do sleep better, it's going to have knock-on effects in so many areas of your life, and you're going to feel happier, healthier, and hopefully wealthier. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Yolanda Coombs. I think it's fair to say we can't argue for your case for needing more sleep. And of course, your top 10 summary takeouts of what we should be doing to indeed get that quality sleep. I think some of the key takeouts for me, I like a few catchphrases. So sunlight is your friend and blue light is your enemy. I think I'll put that in my bedroom for sure. And also the one thing that caught me is that the circadian rhythm of a natural sleep is quite a simple, logical rhythm. And there's just, I guess in our daily lives, there's so many interferences to that rhythm that all we need to try and do is bring it down to basics and follow that rhythmic cycle. So we'll now pass on to kind of question and answer session. So if I'll give you guys some time to kind of draft out some questions if you do have. By all means, use the Q&A button to kind of type out your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. So we have a question come through, and actually it's one I jotted down. So you mentioned this this wonderful plant, albeit in mother tongue lingo. Any idea what that name of that plant is?
No, I think if you Google mother-in-law's tongue, you'll find it's a plant. It's somewhere between a succulent and a cactus, and it has long leaves. And I know you can get it here. I've seen it. And that plant, as I said, it produces oxygen during the night, which is unusual for a plant. So if you have one of those in your bedroom, it's very good for you.
Okay. The other question I'm sure a lot of people will have is something called the groggy or foggy head syndrome. So I think there are instances where you might get your 7 or 8 hours of sleep. I think you find that you've not had many worries that night, but you still wake up with this feeling of a heavy head. And I think I've seen a lot of kind of biohack articles around it, talking about various things you can do. Is there a simple way to resolve that foggy head syndrome?
So one of the times that you get that foggy head is when you're woken up by an alarm clock. And if you're woken up by an alarm clock when you're in deep sleep, when you're in a delta brainwave, it's really disturbing. Because as I mentioned to you, sleep is in 90-minute cycles. And therefore, if you go to bed at a different time, and therefore you can't get 3 or 4 90-minute cycles, then you're going to wake up. Your alarm is going to go off when you're in deep sleep. And it makes you very, very groggy. And that, you may have noticed sometimes if you wake somebody up in deep sleep, they don't make sense to begin with, even if they're talking to you. They'll be mumbling or stumbling around. So one way is to be able to get to a point in where you can tell if you're getting enough sleep, is you should just naturally wake up at the right time without any kind of alarm clock. If you need an alarm clock to wake you up, you're probably not sleeping well enough. So as much as I said you need to be in a dark room, for some people, if you get that very foggy feeling in the morning, open up your curtains so as the sun rises, it will wake you up. You can actually buy alarm clocks that do this, that naturally get brighter and brighter. So rather than a noise going off, the light comes on and it gets brighter and brighter in your room so that you naturally wake up because now there's more light. So that really, really helps with that foggy thinking. That foggy head also comes when, if we've had a lot of alcohol, not necessarily from the hangover, but because our REM sleep has been affected. And so if our REM sleep is affected, we don't go into deep sleep as much. And so we don't get that feeling of being refreshed. And so you need to start looking at the quality of your sleep rather than just the length of your sleep. But if you go out and you drink a lot of alcohol, you might sleep 9 hours the next day, but it's going to make you feel really foggy. And that's one other thing I want to add. If you sleep more than 9 hours, you'll probably have that foggy head. Because more than 9 hours can be just as damaging. We don't need that much sleep. So a lot of people think that they can get by during the week on 5-6 hours and then catch up at the weekend, but it doesn't really work like that. Just one night's lack of sleep has the same effect on our body in terms of our insulin response as being a type 2 diabetic. So if you're regularly missing a night's sleep, you're putting your body into as much stress as you would be as if you were a diabetic.
Okay, and I guess one question coming through from chat as well is any diagnosis that can be done medically to find out the causes of insomnia?
Okay, so one thing is I would say is that often doctors don't ask enough about sleep when they're talking to people, particularly when they've got emotional or mental health problems. And as I said to you, sleep is really going to exacerbate anything that's going on. Generally, most sleep issues aren't from a medical condition. They're from a lifestyle issue, what you're doing, or they're to do with perhaps some mental ill health that you have. There are a few diseases that can affect it, but you would probably see other symptoms first before sleep would be the primary symptom. But sleep disturbances are often related to stress, often related to hormone issues. So that could be anything from diabetes, but it could also be, and for women, men less so, going through the menopause really affects women's sleep. And that's to do with these different hormones that you have and them being out of balance. So for some women, going on to hormone replacement therapy can really improve the quality of their sleep. But equally, there are some herbal supplements that you can take, and also doing some of the things that I've suggested about being a bit more disciplined around your sleep can help.
So lifestyle, not medical. There's a question here from probably a new parent. So for parents with newborn babies and have no choice but to stay up at night and still go to work the following day, what would you advise in order to maintain productivity and still get meaningful rest when one can? So ideally, how can they get back into that circadian rhythm?
Yeah. So it is really difficult. So one thing is to say, that is a difficult period of your life, and it generally lasts around 3 months. So one thing is teaching your baby to soothe themselves. So babies do need to be fed a couple of times in the night, but some babies wake up more than others. And this is because if you think about yourself, if you fell asleep and you had a pillow, and then when you woke up, the pillow was missing, you would wake up more to look for where that pillow had gone. And remember I said to you, sleep is in cycles. So if you allow your baby to fall asleep when you're feeding it, or in your arms, or when you're next to it, then that baby will always look for that when it wakes up, because it knows that that's where it was the last time. So there is evidence to show that if you can put your baby to sleep when they are drowsy but not asleep, they learn to self-soothe and get themselves back to sleep, which means that when they get through that 90-minute cycle, they will just soothe themselves back to sleep until they're actually hungry, because often babies are waking up because they're missing you, or however they've been put to sleep. The other thing that you can do if it's really disturbing you is once or twice a week, try and get somebody else in who will look after the baby. But it's one of the reasons why we have maternity leave, and that again comes back to companies and policies that they have, because by 3 months, 3 to 4 months, your baby should be being able to sleep through the night for at least 6 hours, and then you should be able to allow yourself to go back to sleep for one more 90-minute cycle after that. If your baby isn't sleeping like that, evaluate what you might be able to do to encourage your baby to sleep better. Are they getting enough food in the day? Have they got a good routine? Small babies, however small, need a routine that signals this is time to sleep. Are you, unwittingly having blue light or light in the baby's bedroom that is keeping the baby awake and not allowing them to have enough melatonin? So there's lots of things that you can go through and look through to see how you might be able to improve the quality of your sleep.
Ultimately, it's about helping the baby find their own rhythm.
Yes.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Starting that early.
Yeah. I mean, some people don't teach their children to sleep, and children as old as 1 are still waking their parents regularly at night because they've never been taught to sleep.
That's fascinating. So hopefully that's a tip for all young mothers and mothers to be, is teach your baby to get into their rhythm as soon as possible. A couple of questions I think we've got time for. So the first one, and I'll tie it in with another question, I've jotted down. So I often get quite painful cramp in my legs when I unconsciously stretch in bed whilst asleep. Have you any suggestions to stop this? And I want to tie that in with another question, which is around, you mentioned about the running legs syndrome. Yeah. It's fascinating you talked about that, because I think a lot of people do suffer from that, but don't actually realize what it is. So, you mentioned about magnesium, but tying into kind of the question around the painful cramps, I think some people also get this random jerks in their sleep. What is that about, and what can people do? Because that interrupts them, the cycle.
So the random jerk often is as you're falling asleep, you kind of kick. Sometimes in a dream you have a sensation of falling. For most people, it doesn't happen regularly. If it's happening regularly, then it could be a sign that you are not allowing yourself to fall asleep. Yeah, that there's something that you are preventing you from going into sleep, in which case I would perhaps go and see somebody to talk about that and what's going on. The restless leg syndrome is often a sign, as I said, that you are deficient in magnesium, and you can reasonably comfortably self-medicate with magnesium. As I said, if you use it in a cream on your legs, you want to get good quality magnesium or a spray. Start with a little bit and build up, and you should see a difference in about 2 to 3 weeks with that. The cramps is often a sign that you are deficient maybe in some other minerals, and you might look at what that is. So either go see your doctor, have your blood tested, or just try supplementing with a good multivitamin if you're getting cramps. Sometimes cramp can also be because you're not using your muscles as much, or you're overusing them. And so if you're somebody who's exercising a lot, scale back a bit. And if you're somebody who's doing zero exercise, get yourself out for a 20-minute walk every day. Doesn't need to be fast, just needs to be a little bit of movement so that your muscles are just stressed a little bit, and that's going to help you sleep.
An interesting question here. So if you've had poor quality sleep for a few days, weeks, even months, can you make it up, quote unquote, at a later stage? So can you reverse the impact of lack of sleep?
Well, you can reverse the long-term impacts of lack of sleep by getting back into a better sleep cycle, but you can't make it up in terms of, it's not like a bank, where you can withdraw and then bank it over the weekend. So actually, long-term lack of sleep. So for example, one of the things that happens if you don't get enough sleep is you gain weight. And people who don't sleep well tend to gain a lot of weight unless they're very anxious. And so where you may, if you've got an anxiety issue and that's what's keeping you awake, you may not gain weight. But it's to do with the cortisol. It's also to do with a hormone called leptin. So leptin is a hormone that we have in our body, and when you don't sleep, your leptin levels increase, so that it makes you feel more hungry, and then because you feel more hungry, your appetite increases and you tend to eat more. And when you have an increase in leptin, you tend to reach for unhealthy foods rather than healthy foods. So long-term sleep, you may not even realize some of the other impacts it's having on you in terms of stress, in terms of diet, in terms of mood, and no, you can't make it up. So you do need to address it and sort it out.
And finally, a question for anyone who's an employer listening to us today. You mentioned an interesting stat. So people who increase their sleep by 1 hour a night, so their wages increase by 5% in the long run, i.e. they were more productive. So, you mentioned about things around health and well-being that employers can do. So how do you manage stress? How they can, improve the work-life balance, employees are able to get sleep more. Is there any other trends that you're seeing currently that, as an employer, that is cost-effective but has maximum impact that people can start implementing?
So shift work is terrible for people, and you never really recover your sleep if you're a shift worker. If you look at studies of shift workers, they have much worse health outcomes than other people. So if you do have to have people working shifts, see how you can manage that over time so that people aren't, and that they're not in shifts for years and years. The other thing is, make sure there is natural light in the office. Natural light is really important. So reorganize the office, see what you can do to get as much natural light in as possible. As I said, sunlight is your friend. Give people flexibility around working hours so that they have time to exercise, that they have time to get outside. Encourage people to go take their lunch outside and not just have to be in the office. Have more plants in the office. There are lots of things that you can do which are going to just contribute to people having better sleep, and have systems in place to help them manage their stress and their levels of work. And also have policies. Have a policy which explicitly forbids people from sending emails in the evenings and at night. Because even if you say, well, it's okay, I don't expect anyone to read it or open it, you're going to give them a level of stress if an email comes in from your manager at 9 o'clock at night. It's going to give you a level of stress. Even if you aren't going to deal with it to the next day, you've already created that. So there's stuff you can do as an employer. And for example, some countries like France are very strict on this, about communicating out of office hours.
And I think we've answered every single question that was out there. So thank you very much for your questions. Thank you, Dr. Yolanda, for taking the time to with us and obviously answer quite important and topical questions as well. So as a final point, what I'd just like to say is, at JWSeagon, we have developed an exclusive medical insurance plan called the JWS Worldwide Health Plan in partnership with our friends at Cigna and Hollard. And as part of that, one of the value add points that the policy brings is around helping employees or individuals such as yourselves or employers with free online health assessments. At JWSeagon ourselves, we have done it, and it talks about kind of your pain points based on physical activity, nutrition, sleep, and stress. And these are kind of factors that Dr. Yolanda Coombs just spoke about that do affect our overall sleep cycles and ultimately our bottom line. So if you are interested in finding out more, then you've got our contact details there. By all means, give us a call, and we'll be happy to talk to you about kind of options that support the health and well-being aspects in addition to providing you with your medical cover. So we hope that you've had a very productive session with us this morning or this afternoon. Apologies again for some of the slight technical glitches. Sometimes these things happen, but hopefully you've been able to kind of get away kind of all the key points that we wanted to today. The webinar will be recorded, so we'll be sending you through the recording. And if you do have any other questions specifically for Dr. Yolanda that we haven't been able to answer today, then drop us an email at JWSeagon&Co. And when we do kind of our email out to you guys post the webinar, we will include an FAQ question and answer session there as well. So thank you again for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thank you.